Guys, if you're watching this video, you probably understand that having a solar generator for your home to keep your refrigerator running is a must during a long-term power outage to secure food for your family. This video I put together for you to show you how to build a solar generator that will run long-term through a power outage and keep your refrigerator cold. I'm going to show you what components you need. I'm going to show you the Amazon links for the components that I'm recommending for this project. And I'm going to explain to you what every component does, what gauge wire you need, and how to terminate these wires, and even how to wire everything together so that you'll have the confidence to build your own solar generator and save a ton of money. The heart of your solar generator is the inverter. This is an old inverter that I had laying around, but it will completely suit the purpose for an instructional video. The inverter that I have picked out for you is a 1500 watt inverter off of Amazon. This inverter works the same way though. It takes 12 volts in from a battery and it puts out 115 volts AC for your appliance. So a refrigerator runs off of 300 watts while it's on. The reason why I went with a 1500 watt inverter is to be able to handle that initial rush of current to get the refrigerator started, and then it goes down to 300 watts. I was afraid a smaller inverter would fail you when you need it. And also, it'll give you a little more electricity for if it's the evening and your batteries are full and you know that tomorrow you're going to have a sunny day, so you can do some extra things. You know, you can turn on your Wi-Fi, watch a movie, that kind of thing, as long as you're mindful of your battery budget. The next component in your solar generator is the battery. This is the actual battery that I'm recommending that you buy. It's an AGM battery, 12 volt, 100 amp hour battery. It's available on Amazon. Free shipping. You don't have to mess with any cords like if you went to a standard place where you'd buy a battery. This battery is about $150, and I have 16 of these in my home backup battery, and I highly recommend them. They're inexpensive and they work well. The reason why I'm choosing AGM for you is this is for an emergency situation. You're not going to get a lot of cycles on these batteries because you only use them when you have the long-term power outage or the short-term power outage, but it's not often that you get those. The other options are you can go with a similarly sized flooded lead acid battery, and that'll work just fine. The only reason why I'm choosing this one for you is it's a better battery and it costs about the same, and there's no maintenance. You can mount this battery in any position except upside down. So however you're building this, whether it's going to be on a shelf or in a wagon or a rolly cart, this will work well. Another option is a lithium-ion battery. They're also available on Amazon for 3 to 4 times the price. They're superior in every way. The lithium-ion is way better than this, but again, this is for an emergency situation. You're not going to get a lot of cycles. You don't need the lithium-ion. One thing I can tell you though is if you plan on moving your system around a lot or loading it in a vehicle or something like that, they weigh much less. This is a 60-pound battery. A similar lithium-ion battery is like 20 pounds. So that just a consideration for you on that. So now you have a battery and you have an inverter. This is gonna take your 12 volts from here and it's going to make 115 volts AC for you. At this point, you could power your refrigerator. The problem is that you don't have a way to keep it charged. You could put this on a wagon and take your whole system out to your car, put jumper cables on it with your car running, and charge it back up and be good for another day. The next thing to talk about is how many batteries you need. The average refrigerator uses 1500 watt hours a day. And when I say a watt hour, just to explain the math here, this is a 12 volt battery and it's 100 amp hours. You multiply those two numbers together, 12 times 100, you get 1200 amp hours if you were to completely run this battery down, which isn't good for the battery. The average refrigerator takes 1500 watt hours to run, so you can already tell that we don't have enough. I'm saying that's in a 24-hour period. So we're going to use I'm recommending 2 of these batteries. That gives you 2400 watt hours, which, if you have a sunny day, you're not going to need that. But again, this is going to allow you to survive some cloudy days, to charge some phones and other devices. That's why I'm recommending 2 of these. It takes a pretty large conductor to connect the battery to the inverter, and that's because this is low voltage. When we talk about voltage, that's a unit of electronic pressure, and then if you talk about the amps, that's a unit of current measurement, and that's electron flow. So we have pressure and we have flow, and when you talk about watts, you multiply those two together. That's the math. You don't need to know this, I'm just explaining the math to you. So I want to wire this to be able to accept about 500 watts worth of electricity for this project. We're running a refrigerator and maybe charging some devices. So 500 divided by 12 volts, 500 watts divided by 12 volts is about 40 amps. So I know that for 40 amps, the standard wiring practices recommend an 8-gauge wire. This is a 10-gauge wire. I had this on hand and I didn't want to go buy an 8-gauge wire. This will work just fine for this instructional video. I'm still going to terminate it the same way I would. We'll just pretend this is an 8-gauge wire. But you need a large conductor to be able to go from here to here because this is low voltage. Another thing about this wire is where to get it. You can go to your local home improvement store or electrical supply store and just buy it by the foot. You don't have to buy a whole roll of it. It may be that however you set this up on your cart or on your shelf, they may be this close. You might just need a couple feet of this wire. Just another thing I wanted to share with you. These are the terminals that I recommend that you use on an 8-gauge wire to connect to your inverter and to your battery. And you just buy the ring the size that you need. The dark red is for 8-gauge. Now you can buy red wire and you can buy black wire just to keep your positive and negative. And by the way, black is negative and red is positive. Or you can buy all of one color, and just to keep things simple. And what I like to do is just take some red tape or heat shrink and designate the wire as positive, or you can just leave it plain and it's black if it's negative. And then you take some strippers. You can see the gauge right here. And since this is 10-gauge wire, I'm going to strip it with the slot that says 10. You want to strip it to where it can go all the way through your terminal and stick out flush at the end. But you don't want to have copper showing back here like this. You don't want that exposed because it can short out. So if it's stripped properly, you'll just see the copper showing flush here at the end, and there won't be any copper showing here. The crimpers that I use, they have this little tooth right here, and they really put a good crimp on it. So we're going to put that tooth underneath, and we're going to get the copper flush with the end, and we're just going to squeeze it like that, and that's a properly crimped terminal. And just imagine that I had, one size fatter wire here to fill it up better. Just give me a break on that, guys. And the inverter is going to have these positive and negative studs on it. So you'll put your black on your negative and your red on your positive, just like that, and you'll secure it with a washer and a nut. And then just follow the same process on your battery terminals. They're probably going to need a larger terminal end, though, the hole for the bolt. This is how we're going to connect the batteries to the inverter. You have the positive and negative terminals like I showed you, and on your battery you have a positive and negative post or terminal depending on what kind of battery you buy. And you're just going to run your 8-gauge wire from positive to positive and negative to negative. And remember, this is a 1200 watt-hour battery, which isn't enough, so we need to add the second one. And we need 12 volts. We don't want 24 volts. So what we're just going to add, we're going to connect the positive to the positive and the negative to the negative. So you still have 12 volts, which is what your inverter wants. But now you have twice the capacity. Now you have 2400 watt hours. And that will get you through the shady day or allow you to make it through the night without having to turn your refrigerator off. And by the way, when you connect positive to positive and negative to negative, that's called a parallel connection if you want to impress your friends. Our next component is our solar panel. This is definitely not the panel I'm recommending. It's way too tiny, but for demonstration purposes, I had this laying around and I pulled it out. The panel that I'm recommending is a 400 watt panel because we know our refrigerator is going to pull 300 watts, and we want just to have a little bit extra in case, you know, the sun's popping in and out. And when your refrigerator's off, this can go straight to charging your batteries. And when it kicks back on, it's enough to run your refrigerator through your battery. The panel that I picked for your shopping list is it's 400 watts, and it's kind of you can buy cheaper panels, but depending on how you're going to do your setup, this panel folds up and goes into a bag, and it even has little kickstands, so you can just like take it out in your yard and find the sun and just set it up to catch the sun. You can go the other route, and you can buy a large fixed solar panel, and I'll show you what that would look like. This is a 400 watt panel that I got from Northern Arizona Wind and Sun. This panel is half the price of the one I'm recommending. It's 400 watts, and it's just kind of big and heavy. And I don't know if all of you are going to be able to handle this. It's almost, I mean, it's pretty comparable to handling a sheet of 1/2-inch plywood in size and weight. If you have a place to store it and you can handle this, definitely the cheaper way to do it, and just rig up some kind of way to prop it up out in the sun. It'll work great. There are some pretty intimidating numbers on solar panels that you have to look up and see what they mean, and you're not sure. And you see the 43.5 volts on there, and you're like, I can't hook that to a 12 volt battery. But yes, you can. That voltage is, if this panel was out in the sun, not hooked up to a load at all, and you were just to measure how much voltage was on the panel, you would get that 43 volts. But if you hook it up to a battery, the battery voltage is going to pull it down, and it'll just charge your battery. The ISC rating on there, that's current short circuit. That means if you take those two wires on this panel and you put them together and short them out, that's the maximum current that this panel can put out, which is a little less than 10 amps. So, I mean, that just goes along with what I said. The voltage isn't, it's just a number to explain how much the max it can put out is. You can put this on a 12 volt battery, no problem, but you need to keep in mind that it is going to charge at something less than 10 amps, and you need to have the wiring to be able to go with that. I've done the work on the wiring for you as well. From your solar panel to your battery, I recommend you use a 12 gauge wire. That's because, as I just showed you, a 400 watt panel can put out up to 10 amps, and it could be for several hours. So, and it could be a long wire. Maybe, you know, this is all mounted in your utility room, and you want to put this out in the driveway or out in the lawn somewhere. You might want 100 feet of this. This is available at any electrical supply store, home improvement store. I believe it's called portable power cord, and I recommend a 12 gauge wire. And you can just use 2 of the 3 wires. Everything else here you'll just fold back and cut off. I really like this because everything is contained in this insulator here. You don't have 2 separate wires running all over the place. To me, it just looks way better. It'll lay flat on the ground, less of a trip hazard. And use the black wire as your negative, of course. And on your white wire, you can either remember that it's the positive, or you can just put a little piece of red tape on there the same way. And you connect this to your solar panel. Now, to talk about that, depending on the solar panel you buy, a lot of them are going to come with these MC4 connectors. And it takes a special crimping tool. And for this video, I'm just going to keep it simple. And I'm going to recommend that you just connect your solar panel with these spade connectors. You might have them laying around already. You can get them off of Amazon. You can get them at any auto parts store, home improvement store. They're widely available. And you can use the same crimpers like I showed you before, the same process. But for a 12 gauge wire, you want the blue connectors. So this connection is going to be similar to our other connections. We're going to go from positive to positive and negative to negative on the batteries. You can connect it to either battery, however you want to do it, because electrically these are tied together with a with an 8-gauge wire. So electrically, they're the same point. So whatever is easiest for you. If you don't want to put too many wires in the same battery, you can connect them to this battery. Doesn't matter. So positive to positive, negative to negative. One very important safety concern when you hook your solar panel up to your batteries is you want to make sure that you do this indoors if possible, or if your panel is outside, lay it down on its face so that it's not getting the full voltage development of the sun. On a 400 watt panel, we're looking at up to 50 volts DC, and DC power can long arc, and it's not, you don't want that getting your hand or something. It's not fun. So just make sure that you don't connect the solar panel while it's out in the sun. Make sure it's in the shade. Somehow drape something over it and you'll be fine. So you have your inverter, you have your battery, you have your solar panel, you're ready to go, right? Like you're making power for your fridge, you have your storage here, and the sun is charging your batteries, you're looking good. But what happens when your battery gets all the way charged up and your 400 watt panel is just still pounding and overcharging your battery? It'll really mess with the life of your batteries, and you don't want that. That's where this guy comes in. This is a charge controller, and it allows full panel voltage or wattage to go through and charge your batteries when your batteries are low. But then as your batteries come up to around 14 volts, it tapers that off so that you don't overcharge. So it just keeps your batteries at a nice 14-ish volts throughout the day and protects them from an overcharge. This is the actual charge controller that I'm recommending on Amazon. I've had this one. I took it on a week-long trip in the mountains and ran 3 RV batteries off of a 400 watt solar panel. It did it all week. It did a great job. It even got rained on a couple times. A bonus to this is this display here shows your voltage, your amps, your watts, everything you need to know to keep you from having to buy something like this and make your project more expensive. This also has these USB ports here for charging devices. Very handy. And you can see here the easy connections. There's your positive and negative from your panel, and there's your positive and negative to your battery. So we're just going to draw this guy right here in line between our solar panel and our batteries. And this is going to be a charge controller. And it's just going to connect, like I showed you, positive and negative on the panel, positive and negative on the battery. Easy peasy, you got this. All right, guys, we're getting close now. We have our charge controller, we have our solar panel, our battery, and our inverter. We're ready. Oh, but what if you build this whole thing and you don't use it for like a year and a half? It just sits, and now your power outage comes and your batteries are dead. That's where this guy comes in. And this is the actual component that I'm recommending from Amazon. This is a battery tender plus. It's a trickle charger, and it will hook to your batteries, positive to positive, negative to negative. I've had this unit for 10 years. This is the actual unit that I put on your list as well for shopping on Amazon. It charges a 1.25 amps, which is a very small amount of current, and it'll just keep your batteries hot and ready all the time for that power outage. Now, if you already have a battery charger, by all means, use the one that you have. I'm recommending this as if you don't have one. In this situation, we have a positive and negative, and just like before, we can hook it to this battery or this battery. It doesn't matter. Electrically, they're at the same point. So we're going to come over here with our negative and hook to this battery, and then with our positive and hook to this battery. So now I've given you all the information you know to give you the confidence to go out, buy the components and the wire, how to make the crimps, what size wire to buy. You can do this. It's very easy, and it's like half the price of buying something already made from the store. The good part about this is if one little thing goes wrong, you can replace it and you understand it now. You know what everything does. And you don't have a $3,000 solar generator that's useless now because one little component went bad. Guys, I put a lot of work into this video, shopping on Amazon and pulling out all this stuff that I have laying around. Please give me a like and subscribe if you feel like you've learned anything or that my effort was of any value. And check out my other solar videos as well. I hope you see the value in this. You got this. Have a great day.